Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. Now, we all know that it's important for us to practice if we want to improve our playing on the guitar, but what most people don't know is what do you actually practice in order to make meaningful progress, because a lot of people might feel that they're spending time with the guitar and either they are not making progress, or when they finally get time to pick up the guitar, they don't know what to practice. Both of those scenarios is going to lead to stagnant approach in your playing without any meaningful growth. So that's what I want to help you with in this video, is show you a couple of things that you need to consider when it comes to putting together a solid practice plan and growing as a musician and a guitarist on your instrument. So let's go ahead and dive right in. Now, what I use at our Worship Guitar Skills Academy when I teach our students is what I call this VAMP methodology. Now, VAMP is simply an acronym, and the V stands for visual, the A stands for oral, the M stands for mental, and then the P stands for physical. So that is an acronym, VAMP, and what that means is basically it covers a couple of different very important parts of your guitar playing. So let's go ahead and quickly break down each and every one of these elements, and then when you are doing or creating your practice sessions, you want to make sure that you have one of each of these things in your practice session, and I'm going to show you a fifth letter at the end of this video to show you how you can bring it all together. All right, so our first letter there is visual. Now the guitar, if you look at it, it's not black and white like a piano. When you look at a piano, you can quickly see those are all the white notes. We know those are natural notes. Then you can see all the black notes. You know that those are your accidentals, meaning your sharps and your flats. And you can easily see how that same pattern over every 12 notes repeats on the piano. Fast forward to the guitar, we don't have that same kind of visual nature of our instrument, and therefore we need to have a slightly different approach when it comes to knowing what we are dealing with over here. Just imagine if you have to go through life, let's just say you wake up in the morning, you want to make coffee, or you want to put your clothes on, whatever day-to-day activities you had to do, but all of a sudden you don't have any sight and you can't see what you got to do. You're going to be fumbling around. You're probably going to burn yourself with the kettle, or you're going to make a mess trying to make coffee. You're not going to put your clothes on properly. It's just going to be very hard to do the simplest of things when you don't have your vision working to actually show you what you're doing. And even if you are not fully blind, but your vision is impaired in some way, shape, or form, it's still going to very negatively affect just the simplest of activities in a day. Now, unfortunately, the same thing happens with guitarists. They might learn the open chords like this when they first learn to play, but the rest of the neck is a little bit of a mystery. And that's why it's very important for you to learn when it comes to, say, voicings, that you have a visual nature or a visual way to visualize the voicings on the neck. So let's take, for example, a 4-1-6-5 progression. If I were to play that in G, I can play 4, 1, 5, 6. So 4, 1, 5, 6. I'll play it like that. But if you ask most people to go ahead and now play that all over the neck, they're going to get stuck somewhere along the way. So that's why it's useful to visualize your 4, 1, 5, 6 in the low area of the neck. 4, 1, 5, 6. So you want to be able to see that visually, and you also want to be able to see where are the roots, where are the thirds, and where are the fifths, simply using those two note dyads. I can also play 4, 1, 5, 6 here. 4, 1, 5, 6. So you want to be able to see that visually. I can also do 4 over here. 1, 5, 6. And simply by being able to see the guitar in 3 different areas like that, it's now easy for me to play. Because I can see what it looks like, that progression within a particular key. Maybe it comes to melody notes, maybe it comes to your triads. If you want to play 4, 1, 5, 6 as triads, 4, 1, 5, 6, 4, 1, 5, 6, or 4, 1, 5, 6. You see, because I know my fretboard and the way that things have been put together, I've got that visual side to guide me. So whenever you're practicing, make sure that you are working on the visual intake of information so that it's not just a bunch of notes, but that you almost have that same wherewithal that you would have when you look at a piano where the pattern is clear as day, it's black and white and it repeats every octave, that you can have a similar way on your guitar. So you want to make sure that you work on the first letter there, which is the visual side of things. The second thing, the A, that stands for aural. Now, aural simply means auditory, or the ability to hear. Now, if you think about music, the way that we experience music is through listening, right? If you look at art, you experience that through looking at it. So it's sight that you are seeing things. Now, when we listen to music, we use our ears. Now, the sad thing is that so many guitar players, they never really develop their ears. So they won't be able to tell you that is a perfect fifth interval, or that's a minor third, or that's a minor chord versus a major chord, or that's a power chord versus a second inversion triad, or that's a 4-1-5-6 progression versus a 2-5-1, whatever the case may be. It's important for you to spend some time learning how to hear things on the guitar. So the first thing that you want to learn to tell the difference is with chords. So for example, if I play a power chord like this, all those things that I just played, they were different power chords, which will sound very different from, say, a triad. If I play a root position triad versus a first inversion triad versus a second inversion triad. So you want to be able to hear these differences when you are listening to what type of chord are we playing. Is it a major chord like this, a minor chord, a power chord? You want to be able to tell the type of chord you are playing, and then also very useful to be able to play the different inversions, or to know what an inversion is that is happening. So a root position sounds very different to a first inversion, and very different to a second inversion before you get back to your root position 12 frets higher. So it's not just a chord type that you want to be able to tell what it is, but when it comes to simple triads, you want to be able to tell the inversion as well. Another thing that's very useful is knowing what chord tone is being played when it comes to a single note. So for example, I might have a ringing E like this, and if I play the root note E, it sounds like home. But if I play the third, it's a much more of a sweeter sound that really defines the character of that major chord, as opposed to, say, the fifths. And those are the three notes that make up an E major triad. So you want to be able to hear, is that a root note? Is it a third? Is it a fifth? That will really help you to identify notes when you're listening to a song or to a line. Then you can kind of hear, all right, that is starting on the major third, or that is starting on the fifth, or that's starting on the root. Once you veer out of the standard triads, you also want to start being able to hear the difference between, say, in this case, an A major triad. This is an A sus4, or an A sus2, back to an A, maybe an A add 9, etc. You want to be able to hear these sounds and be able to tell the chord type, the inversion, and then also the extensions that are being used. So like I just had a sus4, is a very different sound to a sus2. So the extensions that you are using on top of those chords are very important. And then of course your actual progressions. When you listen to a 4-1-5-6 progression, it's very different to say a 1-4-6-5 or a 1-6-4-5. And even just cycling through those three progressions, you know, they have remnants of well-known songs. So being able to know the chord quality, the inversion, knowing the extensions that you can use with the chords and your progressions, and also being able to tell out the difference between a root note, a major third, and a fifth, for example. That will help you a lot for your ear to, in the same way that we said, imagine doing things that you can't see. Imagine how it would affect your life if all of a sudden you can't hear anymore, or if your hearing is severely impaired. It would be a very different experience, even just once again doing the most basic things. But unfortunately, a lot of guitar players are playing with impaired hearing because they can't tell the difference between these things. So that's the second thing that you want to spend time on in your practice sessions, is learning how to use your ear and actually hear what's going on around you. If we take the example of hearing God's voice, the Bible says, "My sheep hear my voice." It's important for us to hear the voice of God so that He can lead us and guide us in our lives as we live our lives, right? The hearing part is very important to listen, and then we can respond accordingly in our lives, right? The same thing happens musically. You need to be able to listen to what's happening musically, what the rest of the band is playing, what the song is doing, whatever the case may be, and then you need to be able to respond accordingly because you can hear the progression, the types of chords, the inversions, the extensions, or what chord tones are being used in the melody. So make sure you work on your oral ability when you are practicing. The third thing is the M. That stands for mental, which is really having a mental understanding of what you are doing on the guitar. And that really comes down to theory. So if I play these two voicings, these two-note voicings, then I need to know why this is a G5, why this is a first inversion, why that's a second inversion, using my 4-2 voicings that we obviously feature on this channel a lot. You want to understand why is an add 9, what is different between an add 9 and a sus 9, for example. You want to know why the major scale works the way it does, why the chord types work the way they do. So just understanding the theory behind what you are playing and what the chord tones are, what non-chord tones are, how progressions are formed, how chords are built, how melodies are built. That theoretical side of things really helps you to bring in the mental component of your being, so to speak. So now you're not just blindly playing stuff, but you're actually understanding why things work the way they do, and therefore you can make better, intentional, and deliberate choices for when you want to play things on the guitar, because you understand the why behind everything, and you're not just limited to playing certain shapes. And that's unfortunately another trap that guitar players fall into, is they learn these shapes on the guitar, they don't really know why it works, and then those shapes become kind of a constraint for them. They can't break out of the box because they've just learned these scale boxes and these shapes, and they can't break out of that. However, when you understand theory, then you can see how everything starts to fit together, why certain chords work the way they do, why certain notes work over certain chords, and all these kind of things. It adds in that mental understanding, which makes a big difference in your playing and the kind of choices that you make. And then finally, we have physical. That obviously speaks to technique. It doesn't help if you can see all the notes on the guitar, you know exactly where every note is on the guitar, what the different voicings look like, you have that visual side dialed in, your ear is like working amazingly well, you can hear what inversions are, what extensions are being played, what progressions are being used, and you understand the theory behind it all, why certain keys have certain sharps or flats, or what chord tones are, non-chord tones are. But if your technique, the physical side of playing guitar, if that lets you down, then you're not going to have the confidence and the conviction to be able to play properly, because even though you can see, hear, and understand things musically, you don't have the physical ability to actually go ahead and play that. So that is why when you are practicing, you want to make sure that you are working on some kind of technical drills, which is basically just exercises that you do to program your muscle memory. And that muscle memory and the motor skills, that's really what we use to play guitar, so that we can do things without thinking. Because if we try and think about everything that you're doing as you are doing it, it's too slow. We need that muscle memory to kick in and just, operate at a different level. And the only way you get to build that kind of skill and dexterity in your playing is through repetition. And that is why musicians need to have drills. So if you think about anything in life, when you practice repetition, you do things over and over, you're going to get better and better at it. So that might involve just playing all the G's, all the C's, all the D's, all the G's. That is an example of a drill. You might do another drill where you just play chromatic exercises like that. Whatever you feel you are weak on in your playing, is it rhythmic stuff? Is it string muting? Is it changing chords? Is it playing your notes nice and clean? Whatever you want to do, make sure that you have some drills that helps you, in the same way that if you imagine going to the gym, you've got these repetitions that you're going to do the whole time, and over time it's going to strengthen your body and your muscles, so to speak. You want to do the same thing with your guitar, but it's, instead of these big motions like, just like bicep curls, it's a lot more fine motor skills that you need to play, and that only happens through repetition and the proper drills. So there you go. Those are the first 4 things. You must work on your visual aspect of learning to see things on the guitar fretboard. You must work on your ear to develop your musicality, to be able to hear things. Make sure you have the mental understanding, the theory behind what you're playing, why it works the way it does. And then, of course, work on your fine motor skills through repetition and building up the technique in your fretting and picking hands. So what is the 5th letter? Well, it's the letter S. So that'll spell out VAMPs, and that S stands for songs. Our ultimate goal as musicians and as worshipers is to engage in the act of worship, to lead others into an awesome worship experience. So we do that through singing songs. The Bible says, sing unto the Lord a new song, minister to each other in psalms, hymns, and spiritual songs. So you need to take all these skills that you learn on the guitar and learn how to apply them in a musical setting by playing songs and being able to apply all the things that you learn in an actual real world scenario. So make sure that when you are practicing, you also leave time to not only learn new songs, but learn how to play existing songs in a better, more expressive, more emotive way by experimenting and exploring, so that when it comes to Sundays, what you actually want to be able to do there is not think at all. You just want to be able to get in that state of flow where you can just play and respond, listen, respond, and go ahead and engage and be fully present in the worship experience. Because on a Sunday, you don't want to have your face in the chart the whole time, or wondering how do you play a chord or how do you do that technique again. That is what your practice sessions are for. And if you spend time practicing using these 5 different elements that I've just given you today, visual, oral, mental, physical, and of course songs, you will make a solid improvement in your playing, provided you do this diligently, you practice the right way, and you spend time with that consistently over a period of time. So last week we published a new video with 5 different approaches that you can have on a guitar simply by focusing on single notes, and it will actually use all of these different elements that we've looked at today. So if you're looking for some creative and inventive ways to come up with guitar parts that are not chord based, go ahead and check out this video now.